You have nothing to do with anything else other than we have seen. I think everybody in this particular conference are well aware that sex and gender divide on this very basis. Sex is biological, but gender is a construct. It is something which is imposed by culture on you, that dear, you are supposed to roll yourself, conform yourself with the gender roles only in this particular way possible. I'm sure definitely culture plays a very important role in marking those particular, they definitely take away that freedom that yes, you are not supposed to. Simple example I could do: who on earth told you that when you wear jeans you become a man? Who told you that? Just because our culture tells us that you should definitely dress up in sari and any other outfit which is very girly, I call it as, only that is going to make you a girl. How sick then our thinking absolutely is. And it is very disturbing to see even people who are carrying on. I don't want to name any religion though, I don't want to name any culture though, who are absolutely culturalistic and very coming on the people, saying that look dear, you are this particular gender, so you're only supposed to act in this way. I wonder, when a boy takes every freedom to be on the roads till 11 o'clock, under the name of what? Under the name of what society? Under the name of what culture? You definitely restrict the freedom of a girl. I understand that we are physically weak, and even Simone de Beauvoir says that you are not born, you don't become a woman when you're born, you are made a woman. Absolutely yes. If you imbibe all those cultural traditions and values in you, saying that as a woman, as a girl, you're not supposed to be on the road at 11 o'clock, obviously will be conditioned like that, will be stereotyped like that. And at the same time, if you are such a parent, if you are such a society wherein you believe in definitely imparting defense skills to your child and then throwing her onto the road on or at 11 o'clock, I'm sure definitely this very culture who told that as a woman, as a girl who is not supposed to be on the roads, you will definitely change the face of the country for all those good things. Definitely culture plays a very important role. As I told you, I do not want to really name any culture because that's not how we really respond. But there are people, there still exist people in the society who are very conservative, who are absolutely coming on that particular independency of a girl child, just in the name that yes, you belong to that particular gender, you are supposed to only conform, perform only that particular gender role. Definitely culture plays a very larger role on defining what you are absolutely as a
Yes, yes,
woman and a
yes.
girl. I believe in that.
Congratulations, Vyomaka Sri.
Thank you, sir.
That was a wonderful
Thank
paper
you,
to
sir.
start with, and there is a fire in your presentation, and you probably ignited the spark in your presentation, right?
Thank you, sir.
Maybe this will remind a motivation to all the other presenters too.
Thank you
Hearty
so much, sir.
congratulations to you.
Thank you so much, sir. That's my pleasure. Thank
Over
you.
to the next presenter.
A very good morning. I hope I'm visible as well as audible, sir and ma'am.
Yes, 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 ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am. You
ma'am.
are.
Yes,
You are.
ma'am.
A very good morning to Dr. Anbalagan Vijay, Dr. Rema, esteemed professors and scholars of this erudite gathering and the RSRI Society. I'm Dr. Krishna from Amet University, and my paper is The Predicament of English in Higher Education Portals, Challenges Faced by Rural Learners. Let me now present my paper. I hope my PPT is visible, sir.
Yes, 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 yes. It's visible.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is my title. Am I audible, sir? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are. You are. Please proceed.
Okay. The predicament of English in higher education portals, rural students, and challenges. We are living in an age where English is inevitable and has been the need of the hour, and there is no scope of dispelling the language based on any likability. And there are a slew of factors that promote English to be the language of the future. It has established itself in such a way that a plethora of job opportunities come along with learning it. As former professor N. Krishnaswamy observes, English has become the global language that would give the students a lot of opportunity and mobility. The key words that I've used in this paper are rural learners, naivety, academic disconnect, English, eliteness, privilege, social upliftment, employment, teacher autonomy bar agency, revamping teacher-learner roles. English and of its neo-colonial tag. English has decades ago detached itself of its neo-colonial tag. The view that learners and non-native speakers of English are victims of linguistic and cultural imperialism is not shared by everyone today. This is a quote from Jeremy Hammer. Henceforth, the establishment of English and its continuing predominance is certain, and there is no point in ignoring the language based on imperial overtones. The ineptitude to communicate in English only pushes students to the brink of their academic and forthcoming professional career. So here is the picture that shows how English plays the lingua franca. And looking at the opportunities that it has for students, it's diverse in its function, it gives job opportunities, social upliftment, professional recognition. And here I just put forth some of the research questions, serious research questions that have been discussed in this paper. Number one, what does English play in real life? Two, who are the students who face challenges in learning English? Three, how do students understand its role actually in everyday life in college, universities? What are the predominant issues in teaching and learning English? Teacher autonomy agency, revamping teacher-learner roles. For the sake of understanding, convenience, and research, I have just categorized the students into three levels: the rural, semi-urban, and the urban. What role does English play in a student's life? English is basically a language performing diverse functions. It has become an acutely integral language, breaking geographical, linguistical boundaries. It has been acknowledged as the lingua franca. It's the language of the technology till date. This is an age of knowledge and technology, and invariably, English serves as the backbone of knowledge acquisition. And the raw fact is, at higher education level, English is the deal maker for employability. And next one, how do rural students understand its role actually? Students, rural students particularly, are naive in understanding its importance. No proper orientation is given to them when they enter higher education immediately after schooling. They are academically disconnected. They develop a phobia, a fear. They lack interest in classroom and classes. They lack support from teachers and mentors. There's lack of encouragement, which pushes them to the brink of academic discussions. English only is seen as an academic requirement to complete the semesters without arrears. A recent study backs up this. It was found that a quarter to half of 8th standard children in Tamil Nadu could not read or understand even simple English sentences. Same is considered true with many of the rural students, even in higher education at college level. The shortcomings and challenges: lack of adequate training and opportunities and exposure to the language in terms of all the four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Two, lack of culturally appropriate materials. As Professor Krishna observes, the dominance of Western content in English made students scared of the language. English still is the language of the elite. Access to effective English language learning is still an unfulfilled dream to many, particularly the rural sector. The problem is the incongruence between theory and practice. Teachers teach in English, but a majority of learners do not speak the language. And the next is teacher autonomy and agency. Please excuse me, sir, let me have some water.
Please.
Every change in a classroom begins with the teacher. An enjoyable learning experience begins with the teacher. See, the very problem with most of us, the teachers, I'm sorry, but still, that is the raw truth, is we teachers are basically text addicted, syllabus addicted, examination addicted, and most of all, time addicted. We are in a rush to complete the syllabus, cling on to the text, cling on to the syllabi. And the next very important thing here is most of us, I would say, honestly, this would include myself as well, we lack the grit to go out of the box in our methodologies, in our use of materials and the style. And we need to break the shackles of this academic constraint, I would say. And the next is autonomy could be exercised by replacing the same academic content with interesting materials supported by task-based activities, newspapers, movies, songs, cartoons, video clippings. We can ask students to go on a campus tour. We can ask them to perform interviews in a very lighter vein, breaking academic constraints and the like. And of course, we by ourselves can prepare appropriate course materials based on our learner competence. And finally, revamping learner roles. A stringent academic atmosphere is a poor platform for language acquisition. Learning begins with freedom. We are not aware of this. I repeat, learning begins with freedom. A stringent academic atmosphere is a poor platform for language acquisition. 2, self-consciousness. Let us bring students out of their self-consciousness. See, when we learn a language, they say we need to learn a language like a child learns a language, because a child is not conscious of what it is learning or imbibing, and henceforth freely learns a language. In the same way, we need to bring students out of their self-consciousness and give space for them to act, enact, speak by trial and error methodology. Self-consciousness is a great enemy to language learning. You must learn a language freely to learn to speak it even if you make a lot of errors. And then providing conducive space for language learning. It's not just including technology. This very idea of the seminar is how are we handling things in a robotized atmosphere. And I would add to this, if very normal students are having a little bit of struggle in this robotized atmosphere, let us just think about the rural students who are deprived of opportunities, exposure, and amenities. Let us think about them. But also a discussion under a tree, a campus tour, a tour plan, a visit to the library, and everything that calls for discussion and engagement out of academic compulsions will give them the proper space. We are living in an age where a student who has a good command over the language is sure of succeeding an interview, be placed, and eventually climb the socio-economic ladder towards upliftment. He or she definitely, if she or he has a good command over the language, she has an edge over the others in an interview, and later at workplace and thereafter too. And thank you. I have just presented the gist of my paper.
It's an effective presentation, Krishna. I really enjoyed your presentation, and you have also raised up a lot of issues concerning the learning of English language by the rural students. So the lack of ability in learning English language is not always about the exposure given to them, not always about the background that they hail from. It is not always about their understanding of the language and grammar. Rather, it is something psychological, where we as teachers need to create a conducive environment for the learners to learn things, right? So that is not
Yes.
happening in our system, right? And
Yes, sir.
she rather puts the blame on the education system, and not exactly on education system but on teachers, right? We teachers, while dealing with learners, we are probably addicted to text, syllabus, exams, and to cover up the syllabus, right? So we are always running behind these, right? And completely forgetting about the essential part of pedagogy or teaching and learning, right? So
Yes, sir.
that must happen with children. So that's maybe these are all the wonderful ideas, and she has also given some solutions as how to revamp the learning environment, right? Maybe as I'm going through your presentation, maybe your solutions are practical, still lacking some practicality, because understanding the ground reality of the Indian education system. I don't know where you are working or where you are. I don't know whether you are a research scholar or a faculty somewhere, right? Maybe when you look at the scenario that is functioning in Indian context, Indian educational context, we are always running behind ranking system, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
every institution, regardless of fact whether it is a private institute or a government institute or government aided institute, every institute aims to be number one, right? And in order to achieve this, what happens, sarcastically or ridiculously, people conduct good morning test, good afternoon test, good evening test, right? And the teacher's job is to correct the papers immediately after the test is over, right? When that is a scenario, and do you seriously believe that a kind of maybe your dream must come true? I'm for it. No, I don't have any
Yes,
second
sir.
opinion about it. Your dream of achieving things in classrooms or achieving things through our classroom environment must come true. There is no doubt, second opinion about it. But then, maybe in Indian context, is there any possibility of achieving it when we are always going behind the ranking system, right? Every institute wants to be number one, right? Every institute wants to be number one. So they think that their job is to prepare students for the examination and to score good marks, right? And maybe these scores are not particularly reflective about their real performance or the real cognition, right? So when that is the case, and what is your opinion about it? Maybe if that is the case, right? And what would you suggest as the measures to be taken by the teachers in classrooms?
So, could I take over?
Yes, please,
Yes,
Krishna.
yes, sir. Sir, honestly, this is not simply a research paper. It is something that I wrote out of my own heart, I would say, because even as a student, uh, when I have been a student, I have observed how students who lack communication skill feel, because I myself have been one when I was a graduate. So whatever I have felt, my friends have felt, and which the same was reflected in what my students have felt throughout. With my limited knowledge and with my limited experience, I just wrote this paper honestly. So I'm not literally putting the blame either on the education system or on the teachers, but as everything is possible, since teachers are the space holder of a classroom, since teachers have that agency and authority to conduct a class, to bring about changes in a student's life, I felt like they can. That is why I have included this topic, autonomy or agency. Let us try our level best to make this educational, the academic component into a living component, a lively component. I am not simply asking the education system or the teachers to just shun away from the academic syllabi or whatever it is, the requirements at all. But I'm just asking people, the teachers, we as a whole, to try to make the academic into something that is also entertainable, so that students simply don't look at it at an academic point of view, because anything academic for a student is not that much likable. Honestly, this is a very raw truth. If you're too academic, I don't think learning can happen effectively. The efficacy matters. If you can make any academic thing into something of a fun, a class need not be a stringent class at all. It could be a discussion, it could be a chat, it could be an argument initiated. We can bring in lots of debates wherein students question, argue, criticize, by which you mean to develop almost all the four skills. When you want to develop listening skill, you can play a movie, a decent movie with a subtitle. It need not be any Bollywood or Hollywood movie. It could be an animated children's series with subtitle, wherein students listen to it, try to criticize it. You can bring in a movie review. I hope I made myself clear, sir.
Yes, Krishna. You are absolutely correct. No, 100%. I will agree with you. Teachers have a huge responsibility in the classrooms, right?
Yes.
Whatever the system demands, whatever the curriculum demands, but still, you as a teacher has got a huge responsibility with your students, right? And if you know your responsibility, you will definitely find the ways and means to reach it, right? So it was
Exactly, sir.
wonderful. It
Where
was
there is a will, there is a way. And
yeah,
English, since it plays a very important, whether we like it or not, that is why I presented it previously, the role of English today, the function of English today. In such a scenario, let us all think about the rural learners,
right.
people who are marginalized in our classes.
Right.
That is just
So
a request from
we,
me.
we,
Yeah.
we must really take care of those children who are coming from very poor backgrounds, right? And fortunately, you have quoted Dr. N. Krishnasamy,
Devi, yeah.
with whom
G and Devi.
I have got a long association, if not directly, maybe reading his works, right? And he's a pioneer in writing ELT and the condition of English in India,
Yes,
right?
one voice who speaks for the marginalized, particularly the tribal
Yes,
communities. And that's why I gave a quote from his Crisis Within Knowledge and Education in India.
good. Hmm. Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Ma'am, I have a question. I have a question as part of
Yes.
the audience.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry. The participants, if you have any questions, you may also raise.
Sir, I have a question. Ma'am, may I?
Yes.
Sure, madam, with pleasure,
Very
please.
good afternoon, ma'am. I also teach andragogy students like you. I always have this problem in my mind, like being a teacher myself, and yes, you belong in the same fraternity. I have this in my mind. Do you think that teaching English, according to the new education policy, in the wake of new education policy too, do you think that English can be taught even by making vernacular language a part of the instruction medium by the teacher for an effective teaching for students?
Yes, of course. But what, see, I would like to accept in a way and differ in a way. Accept is we can try our level, teaching English through vernacular is, I think we will confuse the students up to what I infer. Maybe we can just we can simplify things. When you are playing a cartoon, you are starting with a beginner level wherein you include subtitles. It need not be vernacular always, because having come to higher education, they can at least make sense of what they read. And particularly when there are cartoons or videos with simple movies or songs or with subtitles, I hope any student could understand. Maybe you can orally help them by giving a parallel meaning. But because the problem in using a vernacular language as a substitute is they become used to it. It becomes a kind of a always a requirement for them to be said parallelly in their own language. See, as much as you listen, learn, write and speak. As much as you practice the language, a language comes easily for you. So I accept to some extent, I differ in a way.
Ma'am, may I beg to differ? And this is the last point I beg to differ. But when,
Sure.
unfortunately, or fortunately for that purpose, when I had attended a ELT session by the now ELT, what I can call, not Cambridge though, Oxford Society, the I think he was Mr. Chakrapani also. He was of the opinion that yes, sometimes it is very important that an English teacher must definitely include, as I told you, not complete vernacular, but wherever necessary, imbibing or giving some inputs in vernacular language will definitely strengthen the power of English speaking, is what was the opinion that he had opinionated on that particular day in that particular talk. So I just had this intuition to ask you whether if we can really justify if our approach is a mix of a little vernacular and then absolutely English, because at the end of the day, I know the reality is that even if you teach andragogy, even if you teach pedagogy, somehow, as you stated in your paper, it's very true that English is only assessed for the purpose of as a language. There is no, it's only tested because it has to be tested. I don't think so any worthwhile necessity and ease, or for that matter importance, is ever felt. So I feel this, we as teachers also face a lot of problem. So I just had this intuition. Thank you so much. In spite of differing with your opinion, I had got a clarity that yes, we definitely can stand a chance of taking vernacular into consideration when we teach English too, for andragogy as well as pedagogy. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Right. To add something to the point that was shared by Vyoma, I'm also of the opinion that maybe as English teachers, we need to create an environment for the students to learn English. And at the same time, we shouldn't forget about the fact that language learning is language learning regardless of which language a child learns, right? It is basically a language learning, and I have seen many people who are good at vernacular language are good at English also, because it is basically a love for language, not for English language alone, right? So at one point of time, we need to create an equilibrium where students can, no, I mean, this is of course in this is actually a myth. Maybe if we allow students to speak in their vernacular, then the urge for learning English will be lost, right? This is actually a myth. And wherever there is a necessity for the students to speak in Tamil, or wherever there is a necessity for the English teachers to switch over to the vernacular language, right? We can maybe because we need to instill the love in the students for language, right? So when that love happens with language, then definitely there happens a urge to learn the language among the students, right? That's my simple observation, maybe as over the years of my experience, right? That was wonderful, Krishna, again, right?
Thank you. Thank you
Congratulations.
so much, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Shall we proceed with the next presenter?
May request, yes, Suman Bhattacharya.
Okay. A very good morning to one and all present here.
Good morning.
I'm Suman Bhattacharya, and I would be presenting my paper on caste and society in light of Bauma's Karuku. Before I begin, I would like to thank the session chairperson, Dr. Vijay, the organizers, Rsri, and the host, SRM University Ramapuram, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present my paper. Now, we have seen over the years that caste system has actually played an important role in our society. Now, important, please don't misunderstand me. I am not using the word important as something positive. I'll come to that very soon. Now, we have learnt in history that the Varna system or the caste system was established during the early Vedic period. And it was done simply on the basis of the work done by the people, not on the basis of their birth. The later Vedic period, we notice that this corruption and the hunger to take control over the weak by the upper class led to a caste system on the basis of the birth of an individual. As we know, history has always been a witness to the subjugation of marginalization of the lower caste. We need to understand the concept of marginalization and lower caste. The term subaltern, it designates and identifies the colonial population who are socially, politically, geographically excluded from the hierarchy of power. Context, time, and place determine who among the marginalized people is the subaltern. In India, they are mainly women, Shudras, and Dalits, as we know them as untouchables. And the rural migrant laborers are also a part of this social stratum. Now, clearly we understand that the idea for hunger of power leads to the roots of a casteist ideology. So the roots of a casteist ideology comes from the entire notion commonly known as power mongering. We need to grab power. We need to have the power to take control over something. We need to be dominant. We need to be oppressive. And we need to marginalize. If we do not do that, we won't have the power. Let's take a good example here, a very simple example. When a seat is offered to someone in a busy metro station, the person doesn't wish to give it up. And do you know why? The reason is, it is a luxury. The upper caste consider their caste to be a luxury, and thus they refuse to give it up. This paper is an attempt to highlight the experiences of the lower caste in India in the light of events of the autobiographical novel Karukku by Bama. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar says, Dalithood is a kind of condition that characterizes the exploitation, suppression, and marginalization of Dalit people by the social, economical, cultural, and political domination of the upper castes. Dalit literature is a result of several centuries of exploitation of the people of lower caste by the lords of the upper caste. And why am I saying lords? Because they hold the power. They believe that they hold the power, and thus a casteist ideology is born. I would like to proceed with my paper in relation to Bama's Karukku. The path of social reform, like the path to heaven, at any rate in India, is strewn with many difficulties. And this is what B.R. Ambedkar said, and Bama completely believed that. She believed that her village was a breeding ground for caste bias. The Naikars of the village, they owned the lands. And who are the Naikars? Mind you, they are the upper caste. Do not get confused with the entire Brahminical ideology here. The term is often misrepresented by people. Brahminical ideology does not refer to Brahmins only. It is a head under which comes all the upper caste. I know the Brahmins have been hit by this, but unfortunately that is how it works, and people have often misrepresented the term. As I was saying, the Naikars in the village, they owned all the lands, while the Nadars, the Kauravas, the Kusavas, the Pallars, the Paryars, all of them were the lower castes, and each of this community, each of this lower caste community, they had always been exposed to filthy living conditions. Now, the strange part in the novel, we see or we understand that the people in the village, people in Bama's village, the street where they lived, by that we could easily understand their caste. Because since the streets were divided on the basis of the caste, if you belonged to a particular caste, you lived in a particular street. Bama lived in the Cherry Street, the place where the Dalit lived. It was the street where the Dalits were living. So the upper castes, they ensured that they stuck to their side of the village for the fear of being polluted by the impure lower caste. Because these lower castes, they were always exposed to filthy living conditions. They cleaned the drains and lavatories with bare hands, while the upper caste, they stuck to their side of the village with all the amenities. They had schools there, they had proper temples. The lower caste people weren't allowed to take water from the wells that belonged to the upper caste. And Bama goes on to say, if you are born into a lower caste, every moment of your life is a struggle. And it is true. It is true. Unfortunately, this is true, and this is what the society has become. Let's take an example from from the novel. An elderly man carrying a packet of varai. We clearly know there's an incident in this novel that an elderly man, he carries a packet of varai. And who is he carrying it for? He is carrying it for a Naikar, somebody who belonged to the upper caste. The pariah elderly man, he held on to the packet of varai in such a manner that seemed quite amusing to Bama. He was holding on to a string so as to not touch the packet for the fear of polluting it. This incident was initially funny for Bama, but later on, when she narrated it to her brother, and her brother gave her the idea of how sick this mentality of caste bias is, and how these lower caste Dalits were subjugated to oppression by the upper castes, she decided to fight for it. She decided to study and fight for it. She tells us that her brother told her that if they study and make progress, they can surely throw away these indignities. But did that happen? It took time. It took time for her to come up and show to the world that caste bias is definitely, and very definitely harmful for the society. Now, let's take the example from the novel where we understand that people like the Dalits or the lower caste, how they were slowly losing their identity. The entire concept of caste bias slowly made them lose their identity. She tells that because of Dalits, because Dalits have been enslaved for generations and been told again and again of their degradation, they have come to believe that they are degraded, lacking honor and self-worth. In other words, they are untouchables. These Dalits were heinously treated. The Dalits were mainly servants in the upper caste household. And each time they finished cleaning a room, a member from the upper class household would enter into the room. They would sprinkle holy water in order to sanitize and unpollute these rooms. Bama was definitely critical about it. She was very critical to her grandmother as well, because her grandmother believed that the rice and curry, which was left over from the Naikar household, was the nectar of gods. That is what Bama remarks. The Naikar lady, she would often pour the leftover in her grandmother's vessel from a safe distance, from where she didn't touch for the fear of being polluted. Imagine touching a human being, polluting you. That is what the sick mentality of the society is. Bama grew up a little more. She moved from school to college, and that is where she understood that even education is not the only tool to fight against this gender bias. When she was in college, the Harijan students were asked to stand up to be enrolled for a special tuition as a government scheme. And that is when she realized that there's discrimination everywhere, right from the society into schools, at our homes. The places where we learn had actually become polluted, not by the people belonging to the lower castes, but the entire idea of caste bias had polluted the very, very root of the society. Bama decided to speak up. She was fearless, and she decided to speak up about the marginalization of their community. So she resorted to writing to reach the educated mass who had the power to differentiate between the normal and the abnormality subjugated to the subaltern community. She often kept silent to cross the rough seas of humiliation and discrimination. She writes, I swallowed the very words that came into my mouth, never said anything out loud, but battled with it myself. She continues, being coward, I survived somehow. She believed in silent rebellion, gathering people in the community to be a part of the social uprising together and unified, fighting for their rights against the social stigma of caste bias, discrimination. And this was only possible if they could reach their target audience, the upper caste. As B.R. Ambedkar said in the prologue to Annihilation of Caste, but what can anyone expect from a relationship so tragic as the relationship between the reforming sect of caste Hindus and the self-respecting sect of the untouchables, where the former have no desire to alienate their orthodox fellows, and the latter have no alternative but to insist upon reform being carried out. Bama's brother had once gone to a library. He would often go to the library. He was a student who was studying and he was doing his master. So once he had gone to the library, so on his way to the library, he had met a Naikar man, a man from the upper caste. Now, by looking at somebody, you do not know what caste that person belongs to, which caste that person belongs to. So fortunately, the Naikar man did not know that. But as you know, streets were divided on the basis of the caste. So you could only dwell in those streets where your caste belonged to. So the Naikar man, approached Bama's brother with a lot of respect. But when he learned that he lived in Cherry Street, things turned different. He was unable to digest the fact that a Dalit student was doing his master's degree and was even going into a library. He was not able to digest the fact that even the Dalits or the lower caste people could have access to these resources. He was scared, rather, if not consciously, I would say subconsciously, he was scared of the fact that one day these people would rise and show them what the truth is. And thus, I am presenting my paper today. Upon traveling in a bus one day, the woman sitting beside her asked where she lived on the pretext of learning her caste. As you know, I told you, the caste could be learned by learning about the street where you lived. And when she knew that Bama lived in Cherry Street and was a pariah, the woman left her seat and sat elsewhere, for Bama was an untouchable. This may not happen now. Very true, this may not happen now, but the fire has left behind its ashes, slowly consuming the society as a whole. Bama also experienced bias in the house of the Lord, the churches. Bama decided to become a nun because she wanted to serve the poor. She wanted to help the poor, but things turned out to be totally different when she was being ordained to be a nun. She happened to learn that the Harijan women were not accepted in all the orders, and that there was a separate order for the Harijans. Who are the Harijans? It's a very fancy term for the lower caste, a fancy term that was coined by Mahatma Gandhi so that the people belonging to the lower caste do not feel left out. Why would they be left out? Why should they feel left out when everything is theirs, yours, and ours? She came across more startling revelations of the convent and the nuns. The nuns had no compassion for the Dalit children. They spoke poorly of them. And even when a small child fell asleep in the middle of the pusai, the nuns would beat them, hit them hard on their backs, on their soft, fragile backs. The nuns even spread rumors, or rather they believed that the Dalits were faithless. Whereas in reality, Bama says that the Dalits were devout believers and worshippers, celebrating every religious ceremony with utmost devotion and good faith, even when they had very limited resources. The convent was nothing more than a symbol of hollow and vague promises of the church, and upon its realization, Bama wanted to be set free to take flight with her wings. She wanted to leave the order. She was given a chance to leave the order. She was given a chance to leave the order. When she left the order, she joined a school as a teacher. And at this point of time, she realized, or she saw, how schools were imparting the wrong education. She noticed that all the chores in the schools were being done by the Dalit students, whereas the students belonging to the upper castes sat in the classroom cozily. The teachers looked down upon these Dalit students. They were made to clean lavatories. They were made to clean the corridors and the floors. There's no harm in doing the cleaning. It's always a good thing. Keeping the place where you study clean is a very good habit that was being instilled in the students. But ironically, the Dalits were the ones who were learning the good stuff. Ironically, when the caste divide was done in the school, the upper caste thought that they were teaching the right thing to their kids, to their sons and daughters. But ironically, it was the opposite. Baba realized that education was not enough to fight back. That wasn't enough. People had to change. They had to change their faith. They had to change their belief system. She decided to write. She decided to shake the mass for a social uprising. The people have to be mentally dissociated with caste and learn that there is no pride in it. This is the solution, and I believe it. They have to learn that the essence of human and humanity must be imbibed within us from infancy. I would be wrong to blame the generation I would be wrong to blame the generation who was born in the decade after independence, and that they weren't able to instill this value within us. I would be wrong to blame them, because the caste system is a 2,000-year-old notion that has slowly consumed the society, but I'm confident it would gradually eradicate if people change. Baba Saheb believed, Bhimrao Ambedkar, he believed that one of the tools to do so would definitely be intercaste marriage. One of the tools that I believe is definitely, I won't use the word keeping yourself aloof from religion and culture, but keep yourself astray from what is not right. Whenever the entire concept of humanism, humanity, human being is lost in a culture and tradition, keep yourself away from it. That is my observation, and that is what I believe. So we should understand that the novel Karuku has brought out the immense problems that were faced by the people, by the lower caste people, by the Dalits in the society. And it is very relevant today, because had that not happened, we would not have had examples of young boys, young scholars who are Dalits and are being shot for going into the temple, or they are having to commit suicide for the unjust governmental rules. In the novel Karuku, we see that Bama has been able to show us how difficult it was for her to be a victim of double marginalization. I'm using the term double marginalization here because she was marginalized in the society by both patriarchal as well as the social hierarchy in which She was made to feel that she belonged to a lower caste and that she was also a woman. Yes, she is highly optimistic about the future prospects and is certain that it is possible to lead a meaningful life, a life that is useful to others. We should surely have a society, we should rather work together to have a society where no one should ever have to say, my birth is my fatal accident. Thank you. With this, I end my presentation. Dr. Vijay, you're on mute.
Sir, sir, you have to unmute yourself, sir.
Dr. Vijay, you're on mute. You need yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. That was a brilliant presentation, Mr. Suman Bhattacharya.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
And I would have been happy if you had turned on your camera from the beginning, right?
Actually, sir, there's a pocket in our locality, and I'm having to use the mobile data. There's a pocket for a long time now, and I'm having mobile data, and that is why I kept my video off.
Okay. No problem. And the papers that we have been listening through today are unique in one way or other. Like the first paper, there was a kind of discrimination between men and women, right? And then again another paper on the second paper, maybe rural children and urban children, right?
Yes.
In learning English language. And the third paper is about the psychological trauma that is going on between the upper caste people and lower caste people, right? And that was a wonderful presentation, or rather a kind of observation made by Suman Bhattacharya, including the facts that was going on historically, right? What happened in Indian caste system, right? How people like Ambedkar or Mahatma Gandhi fought for it, and who would like to revolutionize the system. And then he talked about the situation that was prevailing in the novel Karukku. So it was wonderful, but of course, as you mentioned, the kind of struggles faced by the lower caste people are manifold, right?
Yes.
Not simply one or two, right?
Yes.
Wherever they go, right? Maybe at some disguise, the question about their caste, question about their identity is demanded to be revealed, right? So this goes without saying, people are suppressed everywhere, right? And there are news in newspaper like the people were deployed to clean the lavatories, right? So they were involved in doing the menial jobs, right? So there are cases everywhere, right? So Bama has critically registered all these incidents. Maybe through if I observe through your presentation, there was one situation like an elderly man who was carrying a package of vada to a Nayakar person, where he carried the vada by holding the string of the vada package, right? So he was allowed to carry the vada package to a Nayakar person, but he was not supposed to touch the package, right? And probably you registered another interesting quote like touching a human being is polluting the situation, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
And we are living in a society where there are divides, right? And my question to you, Bhattacharya, is situation still prevailing? You also have provided a lot of solutions, like you need to educate and progress in order to see the equality, right? In order to prove your identity. That's one thing. So
Yes, sir.
it should
Yes,
not
sir.
be stopped with that. Instead, you need to change your faith and belief system, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
Bama herself has said that instead of being more and more beaten down and blunted, they must unite, think about their rights, and battle for them, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
She says, and of course there are a lot of incidents. Bama herself belongs to Dalit Christian family, I believe, right?
Yes, sir. She was a pariah.
Dalit
Yes, sir.
Christian family belonging to a place in Virudhunagar, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So probably she could recount all her experiences being a Dalit into a kind of observation which is meant to be read openly by everyone, right? And
Yes,
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 categorically brings about the divide between. And it was quite interesting that she asked the question to her brother, and he suggests that you need to educate yourself in order to battle, right? So
yes, sir.
what is your point of view, Mr. Bhattacharya, about the kind of situation that is prevailing in present day context? Because there is a reservation system, right? And this
Yes, sir.
reservation system is quite supportive of the so-called Dalits. Dalits
Yes, sir.
are the lower caste people, right? When such is a
Yes, sir.
thing, do you still think that the divide is larger than it was presumed to be?
Okay. What I can tell you, sir, is that the problems that were faced by the lower castes around about 50 to 60 years ago, during the time, right after independence, during the 50s and 60s, definitely the problems have become lesser. Definitely, the people have changed. The mentality of the people has changed, but unfortunately, it has not gone away. It has not gone away. And one of the basic reason I can tell you is the very fact that whenever we fill a form, any kind of a form that we need to fill up, be it for an examination, be it enrolling ourselves into a university or a college or a school, there is a distinct mention of a caste. The entire concept of caste is imbibed in us, and the government is continuing with it. The society, I won't blame the government for it exactly. They have their own set of ideas. They have to play their politics. That's completely different. But the society still lives with it. The problems are not as much as they used to be.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yes, sir.
And now there is a choice for you to mention a refer community certificate, right? You don't bluntly mention your community or caste. Instead, you can say refer community certificate, refer original community certificate, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
it becomes evasive. It is not completely rolled out, right? It becomes evasive.
Yes, sir. But the thing is that why do I even have to mention it? Why is it even necessary for me to mention, that refer to community certificate? There should not be anything. If we demand equality, then equality should just not be in pen and paper and books. It should be in reality. And the problems that are faced by the people today. Okay. I'm not going to talk about in terms of the eastern part of the country or western, northern, southern. I'm not saying that, but overall, yes, the problems have lessened, but we still see we still see caste bias. I'm not going to talk about gender bias now. We still see caste bias. We definitely see that. And reservation, yes, it is required. It is required because I'm not saying reservation is required simply on the basis of caste, but it should be a twofold reservation, I believe: caste and the wealth that you have.
Right.
The reason is, if you are a wealthy person, you have access to resources. But if you do not have that wealth, you will not have access to resources. Now, people living in the Spiti Valley in Himachal, where there are not even 100 houses, where the population is a meager 5,000 approximately. It's a small valley near the river. Only about 120 houses live there. So when I'm competing, me living in Kolkata, in a metro city, somebody who's living in Bombay, who's living in China, when they are competing with somebody who lives in the Spiti Valley, the fight is not equal. I am almost towards the finish line, and the other person is miles behind the starting line because of the lack of resources. And that is what I believe. That is why I believe it should be on the basis of caste as well as the financial.
Right.
So reservation is required today in India. I am completely for reservation, but on the basis of these two concepts.
Two things.
Yes.
Fine, Mr. Suman Bhattacharya. And as he rightly pointed out, the divide is not so visible in urban cities where you do not even know your neighbors, right? When you don't know about your neighbors, you don't know about his caste or religion too,
Yes.
right? But when you
Yes.
go to rural India, the divide system is quite visible, right?
Yes.
So the system which is quite conspicuous, right, should be reduced, right? And
Yes, sir.
maybe like Sumant Bhattacharya, let me also hope that we need to create a society which is harmonious in nature, which will accommodate all kinds of people, right?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Sumant Bhattacharya.
Let me just I mean, I would like to say something. I would just like to finish with this. The entire notion of, having a society with all kinds of people should be removed. Why will there be all kinds of people? We are all the same. We are all the same. People belonging to every single part of the country is the same. So it should not be all kinds of people. Everybody is included. That's it. That should be the idea. The entire notion of having pride in one's caste should be, I think, wiped out completely, because there is no pride in that. Because you are just born in a particular family. A family that was 2000 years ago pushed into a caste system on the basis of your profession. Simple. On the basis of your profession. So today, if somebody asks me what is your caste, if I follow scriptures, if I follow the Vedas, I would say my caste is a teacher. My caste is a teacher, because the caste was divided on the basis of profession. Somebody who sells milk, that person's caste should be a milk seller. Somebody who's a professor, that person's caste should be a professor. Simple. Somebody who owns a shop, my caste is a shopkeeper. That should be the system.
How actually the idea came from. People were divided by the professions. Now we need to recreate a situation. Maybe the same thing can prevail, but in a different manner.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
That's a normal idea, Sumant Bhattacharya.
Sir, I have 3 questions to Mr. Suman. May I be permitted? Yes. Sir, for my first question, a very good afternoon to you, sir. I am not into this Dalit literature or any marginalized literature as such. You know that post-colonial literature is all about this. But when I was very, very quickly and very attentively listening, I had a concurrent statement that sir had made right now. You told that politics is a part of marginalized literature. Now, I have 3 questions in this regard. That do you see that Dalit literature, for that matter, any marginalized literature, is a recreation of, so can it be used as a socio-political tool to represent the existing, whatever I can call, kind of an existing society as such? This is first question. Can you justify Dalit literature to be a very socio-political tool to talk about the marginalized? Is my first question. Second question is that, do you think Dalit literature is only politics of class and caste, or you have even power operating at every level, even in this kind of a literature too? Third, is it any time possible? Like, because I have come across a very good article which says that there is no voice absolutely. If you go by the subaltern studies, since you took that particular word called subaltern, I think Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak always told that there is no voice absolutely given whatsoever it is for this subaltern. Do you think that we can subvert this system in any which way possible? Can we subvert, or yet we have seen all the writings which have been existing till date are only trying to reconquer the same situation every time without much of a subversion of Dalit literature, for that matter, marginalized literature in post-colonial, or for that matter, any literature possible? These are the 3 questions that I have. Kindly clarify.
Okay. I'd like to start with the third question first. Now, as you have said, Vyoma ma'am, that the representation of Dalit literature today has been almost the same as it was back then, and it's a recurrence of everything that has already been told. So, what I think, what my opinion in this matter is that Dalit literature that is being written today, Dalit literature that was written 50 years ago, there is not much of a change. The reason is there is not much of a change in their social strata, and there is not much of a change in their social acceptance. If there would have been a change, you would have definitely seen the change in literature. Now, along with that, I'm moving towards your second question. Dalit literature, I would definitely not say that it's an idea of power, or it's just an idea of politics or whatever. The reason is the facts prove to us that Dalits have been marginalized. I mean, over many years, many centuries, and in the present day, I have mentioned that in my presentation as well. We don't see the difference. We don't see much of this existing today. But the fact is, the fire that was lit many years ago, it's still burning. Amazon still burns. The fire that was lit in Amazon many months ago, it still burns today. The same goes with Dalit literature. The fire that was burnt so many thousands of years ago, it still remains today. And the Dalits, not just Dalits, not only Dalit, everyone who's considered to belong to a lower caste, their pain is very much true, and their pain is very much real. So there should not be any concept of political angle or something of that sort. And ma'am, could you please repeat your first question?
Sir, I would like to add something to this. When you talk about the Dalit literature not being a representation of the socio-political happenings of that particular age, then I would definitely like to get back, because when I was listening to your talk, I was remembered very quickly of Kantapura by Raja Rao, wherein I had always read Kantapura by Raja Rao only in terms of regional literature, in terms of Gandhian novel, in terms of all sorts of novel. But I felt that rather than all these things, what is very predominant that Raja Rao always wanted was that he wanted to bring in this angle of Dalit, kind of a Dalit representation that was going on at that particular point of time. Then how can you not say when Raja Rao's Kantapura is a very seminal work in the region of Indian writings, that is always considered as a very socio-political and independent literature written at that particular point of time? Then how can you not consider this strand that, okay, even Dalit literature can be seen as a socio-political tool for representing the society that was existing then?
No,
How can
Dalit literature can definitely be used as a tool for
Exactly.
representation of the socio-political scenario
Right.
back then. Absolutely, why not? But we cannot deny the entire idea of subjugation and marginalization in that.
Definitely, I definitely concur.
In case of Kantapura, the entire idea of socio-political literature has become more dominant than the Dalit literature angle. The reason is the way it has been represented. The same goes with Bama's Karuku. It has not been represented, or it has not been projected.
Right.
The writing has not been projected as a socio-political, with the socio-political angle. The writing
Right.
has been projected as a subjugation of Dalit literature.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Fine, Mr. Suman Bhattacharya and Vyoma for taking the discussion to a different dimension. And we are supposed to wrap up this session. And to add up with the last point to what Miss Vyoma said and Sumant responded, if you consider literature from the socio-political perspective or power politics perspective, of course, the gimmicks are played, right? From looking
Absolutely.
at a surface level of understanding,
True, sir.
of course, the socio-political game is still being played. But when
Absolutely.
it comes to be literature, I think it is a genuine representation of what is being practiced in a society, right?
Absolutely,
So,
Well
looking
said.
at as a socio-political game and a literature, they are traveling in two different tracks.
So may
right?
you repeat the sentence? Literature is more of a
Literature is a genuine representation of what
okay.
is really being practiced in our society,
Okay.
right? Whereas no, when you consider the situation that is prevailing in India with the perspective of socio-political game, right? Maybe we can understand, politics is about gimmicks.
Absolutely.
So maybe
Absolutely.
people are trying to politicize the situation, right?
Right.
Uh,
Yes.
right. So thank you all for your wonderful presentations. And I
Thank you so
think
much.
it's time to break the session, right? Now it's over to the organizers.
Thank you so much, sir, for being with us. It is
Thank
time to have a formal vote of thanks. I hand it over to Mrs. Vidya.
Good afternoon, sir. On behalf of the Department of English and other foreign languages and the entire team, and on my own behalf, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. J. Anbaragan Vijay, Professor, Department of English, Government College of Technology, Coimbatore, Speaker of the session, for spending your valuable time and moderating the presentation. I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all the participants for their excellent presentation and making this session meaningful and interesting. With these warm words, we move to the end of the session. Thank you, sir.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. We request our participants and the presenters to join us at 1:30 p.m. for the second session. Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
all.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.